Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the one and only Martin Brand. Mr. Brand is a genius, which I have to say before we go too deep into the interview. I have to give him his credit. And I always like to start out with the parents before we go into all the success, which was like you're originally from Germany, and I kind of want to know what the culture is like over there. Do your parents tell you over there success is all we want? We want nothing less. Or do they kind of let you figure that out on your own?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for doing this. And this came together so serendipitously. And you just asked me on the street in Boston if I wanted to do this. And I'm very happy to do this. I'm certainly not a genius. So thank you for that introduction, but it's false advertising and far from it, actually. But to answer your question, so I grew up in Germany, and the most important thing I'd say is that I had a loving upbringing. Sorry. Um, so my dad's an architect. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and they're still in good health. So I speak with them a lot and see them a lot. And they were just very warm and nurturing parents, and they did not put a ton of pressure on me to succeed. I think if I had done less of a finance career or anything like this and had chosen something completely different, they would have supported that.
Okay, so which brings up my next question, which was at what point did you know you wanted to get into finance? And at what point did you know it was going to be private equity?
Yeah, so I did not know that I was going to go into finance. I did not grow up with a lot of folks that had done finance. I grew up in a suburban middle class German town, and it was typically teachers and architects and postal workers, a lot of immigrants actually in my neighborhood where I grew up. And so the I had no idea what private equity was, but I was very academic, so I went to study math at Oxford University. And then when I was there, I just realized there's so much more out there that I can do. So I did an internship at Goldman Sachs, which obviously is a finance firm. And then I ended up over time figuring out the different things you can do and realized that for me personally, and it's different for different people, private equity was the right field. And so I ended up doing that after a few years.
And could you explain to us what is private equity?
Yeah, it's the easiest way to describe it is we uh, invest money often. So institutions typically give us money. Think of it as, for example, a pension fund, and we buy companies. But unlike buying them in the stock market, we tend to buy the entire company, not just shares in it. And then we try to build the business, improve the business, grow the business, make it a more valuable business. And then after a few years, on average, maybe 4 or 5 years, we try to sell it with a gain for those investors, the pension funds or other investors that have given us the money.
And what types of companies would you usually consider into thinking, I think we should essentially use a private equity play for this company? Like what types of companies usually cross your mind to use a private equity strategy?
It's a very diverse set of companies. We try to invest in companies that have good management teams, that produce products that customers like, that are well run, for is ways to improve them too. And we're looking also for obviously buying them at attractive valuations or finding opportunities to do something with the business.
So does private equity thrive more when the economy is booming, or it thrives when the economy isn't doing so well? Like what types of environment does private equity thrive in the most?
we try to find opportunities in any environment. So one of the benefits we have as private equity investors is that we can use our ability to control the business to improve the business in economic downturn environments as well as in environments that are boom environments. But generally speaking, of course, investing is easier in times when the market goes up, right? Because you get the benefit, of course, of market appreciation. So, but nevertheless, we have the benefit of being able to improve the businesses in any environment.
So, what's a leverage buyout, an LBO?
Well, it's what I described. It's basically buying a business. Just like when you buy a house, there may be some amount of debt used to finance the transaction. We try to be very prudent in the amount of debt we use, and that's what a leverage buyout is really. So it's buying businesses. Think of it like buying a house with a mortgage, except you buy a business.
Buying a business. Okay. And how much tougher is it in private equity for you to, because I know you said you try to find opportunities when the economy is booming and even when it's not doing as well, but it has to be a little bit tougher for you to borrow money when interest rates are extremely high, right? And how do you navigate through that obstacle?
Well, I think when interest rates are higher, you have to pay the higher interest rates. So maybe, like I said, we tend not to actually have we tend to have very prudent amounts of debt. So even the higher interest rates tend not to put any a burden on the companies that is excessive.
Okay. And what does education mean to you? Because you're very educated. So was that like a passion that you personally had yourself, or was that something that your parents told you, even though they might have never told you you have to be successful, but did they tell you you have to be educated?
Um, I'd say I always enjoyed learning, basically, and my parents encouraged that. And you know the way this interview came together, of course, you and I talked about your desire to have a great education, doing this as a project in relation to that, and I thought that's fantastic. So I do believe for anybody having a great education is really really important. And so my parents didn't push me, but just like I think if somebody really enjoys sports, maybe they have parents who encourage it and they drive them to training and they prod them a little along if they lost a game. But if they like it, the parents don't have to push them too hard. And it was kind of like that.
Okay. Have you ever dabbled in European markets at all, or has it always been US markets?
Mostly US. I mean, I was in London for 2 years, but mostly US.
Okay. And what are some financial books that you've read and that you've like to recommend to the audience?
But first of all, there is our founder, Steve Schwartzman's book, What It Takes. It's a good book. So I highly recommend that. There are books on value investing that a lot of people uh, like. And I think there's also a lot of content out now on YouTube, etc., where people do talks like the one you're just organizing here, and with much more accomplished people and much more in depth, and it's a great way to learn. Frankly, it's a wonderful thing compared to the world I grew up in the 1980s, where if you didn't have access to like a great school nearby, it was harder to find content like this. Now it's freely available. The Intelligent Investor is the value investing book that a lot of people like, and it's a good book because it talks about the difference between speculation, which is just buying things without thinking of it as a business, and investing, which is thinking of it as a business.
Okay. Um, Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. Do you believe that people need mentors to be successful? And did you have a mentor on your path to success?
Um, I think it's much easier if you have somebody who is a mentor and who helps you. And I certainly did have some folks that were really very generous in giving advice. I try to do the same right now for more junior folks. And I often still make the mistake, even in a more senior position, of not always asking for enough help and mentorship from others who have more experience than me. And whenever I do get that advice, I find it tremendously helpful. So I think no matter where you are in your life and career, seeking out mentors, and there's often people who are very willing to do it because it is rewarding to help people. I think it's a good thing to do.
And let's go back a little bit on your career. What are some of the most proudest moments throughout your financial career?
Yeah, I'd say I just give you one. The one moment when I was most proud was we did a refining investment, and it was there were three refineries that this is a long time ago when we were, but that had one of them that we basically invest in three refineries, and one of them had been shut down. So all these workers had been laid off prior to us investing, and our management team thought they could revive this refinery. And so we reopened it and rehired a lot of the people that previously worked there because it had been mothballed effectively, right? And that was a lot of jobs, and then there's a lot of jobs that obviously depend on all these people, and so we had an opening ceremony for that plant, and people were so just happy to and so you of course you feel that when you're there, and you had a part in that. I was a junior person on that transaction, so I had a small part in it, but that was I was proud then. So that would be the best moment.
Best moment. And looking back at your beautiful, successful career, what are some things you've learned that you'd like to leave for future generations in finance and also in life? What are some things you've learned that you'd like to leave behind for future generations?
Yeah, I'm um I'd say always do always hold yourself up to the highest ethical standards. It's very important. Work hard. Be a team player. The people that I've seen succeed in um, uh, over the course of my career, um, they weren't politically sharp elbowed. They were like actually trying to make everybody around them succeed, and gave back to effectively their team, and then people who work with you, they notice it, and they like to reciprocate that. So it's not like the one man band who's somebody's so brilliant and they're so much better at everything, and that's why they succeed. So if you work really hard, you must enjoy what you do, because otherwise, I believe it is difficult to will yourself to work hard if you don't take some enjoyment out of the job. And you're a good team player. That's probably um, one of the most significant parts of being successful. And then in terms of life, I think it's similar advice, and I now have three young kids. So they're 4, 2, and 3 months old, and in the same way, they give me enormous happiness and joy, and find the right balance. And it's not always easy, because if you have a job that is very demanding with your time, it can be it can sometimes tempt people to have it take over their life, and that's just not a healthy thing. You want to have a very balanced life, and seek good relationships and friends. Seek out friends, which is just like the mentorship point I made earlier, really important.
And how do you deal with stress? You know, you clearly have a very, very very, how would I word it? A very busy life. You have three daughters, and you have a very busy work schedule. Now, how do you deal with that type of stress?
Yeah, no, I try to do what the motto of my boss, John Gray, is stay calm, stay positive, never give up. And I, I think the most important thing is to, when you have a stressful situation, to remind yourself that most of the, like almost every time there is, if you do the best you can, that's all you can try, and almost always there is a way to come to a positive outcome. And so just staying calm, and I do have a pretty calm disposition. So I mean, by nature, some people get more stressed when they're under pressure and they freak out a little bit. And I guess I'm blessed that it's just like naturally not the case with me. So I tend to stay calm.
Do you play any poker at all?
Not very well, but yes.
Like, how do you eliminate fear out of your life? Like, if you're about to implement a strategy, do you ever have self-doubt at all? And
Yeah,
if you
all the time, all the time. I mean, I think there is sorry, there's another person I work with who says there are no brave people. There are no brave old people in finance, because you may be brave and get lucky a few times, but if you take undue risk uh, often, because you have no fear of making mistakes, then it probably sometimes will go catastrophically wrong. So I always second guessing and nervous that we make not quite the optimal decision. So
and this is going to be my last question for you because I know you have to go soon, which is just what type of impact has Blackstone had on your career and personal life?
um, I've been super blessed to work at a great institution that's been extremely supportive. And like, I came straight out of business school, and I was actually, when I met you, I was there in Boston for my business school reunion, and the 20-year reunion. There aren't that many people that have had the same job for 20 years in my class. Uh, very few actually, and it's because it's been a place that has just very good people that I enjoy working with. Has obviously had an opportunity to grow into more senior positions. The firm itself grew during the same period, which was helpful. And so I mean, at the end of the day, I enjoyed going to work, and I enjoyed having my position change and get more responsibility every few years. So it always remained interesting. And so I guess I got lucky. Right, but there are a million different ways people can do well. Some people change firms a lot until they find the right place. Some people start their own firm. Some people focus more on their family. And I mean, it's very important not to think of success just in the context of work success. It's obviously important, but I think life is much broader than that. So, but it allowed me to be successful in a professional way in a really good organization. So that was fun.
All right, then. Well, we thank you for your time today, Mr. Brand. Thank you for all this wisdom and knowledge. We appreciate it.
Thank you.